So, guys, I want to do this video series of AEW, and it's called The Most Underrated, where I talk about like a wrestler that's very underrated in AEW, and I really just break it down, in a period of 10 minutes. And the first person I want to talk about is Mark Briscoe. That I really feel that he is definitely one of the most underrated wrestlers in AEW. That when I look at Mark Briscoe, there's a couple of problems with him. That, first of all, he was the Ring of Honor champion for AEW, and last year he was a big workhorse. So I honestly think that, that should be rewarded. And the other thing about it is that when you have somebody that you purchased from Ring of Honor, you have to be like, hey, you know what? You benefit from my purchase. We're gonna strip mine Ring of Honor and bring some stars onto the AEW roster, because that way it makes the company look good by saying, hey, you know what? When we buy another company, we have wrestlers that become big stars. The same way when WWE purchased ECW, it was a big moment for Rob Van Dam, the Dudley Boys, and a couple of other people on that roster, really. Or, you know, um, when WWE purchased WCW, they had Booker T and other wrestlers that that benefited. It shows that you can actually, elevate people when you buy other companies, and you need to establish that, because then people may say, "Well, New Japan Pro Wrestling struggling. Look at how Tony Khan's managed Ring of Honor. Really, look how many new stars have they actually made by the merger." Oh, well, they haven't really, So that's one of the big detriments, and that's how I feel about it. That I think that he has a lot of potential. It's a bad look for the company not to push him. And I would also say another thing about him is that he's a big jobber. He's almost like the Don Callis family, where the point of Mark Briscoe really is to lose when he's supposed to lose and win when he's supposed to win. And the last thing that I'll say about Mark Briscoe is that he's not a disciplined wrestler, and Tony lets him do what he wants. Because how many times have we said this? That a wrestler cannot set up a fucking chair and do a dive off a chair or dive onto somebody in a fucking match that's a no DQ. In a disqualification match, that's okay. But in a regular match, you can't do that. It'll be the same thing as if you had Jeff Hardy come back to WWE and he's having a match with John Cena and he pulls out a ladder in a match that is a regular championship match. That's only for no DQ, even if he's just jumping off of that. They may say, well, you didn't hit somebody with a chair. No, it still counts because you're using it for elevation, type of thing, really. The same way if Jeff Hardy was to jump off a ladder in a regular match, that's using it as a weapon because you are increasing your elevation and level of force by the drop, really. So I really, really just think that, these are like the issues with Mark Briscoe, and that's what's hurting him. But I would also talk about, where the potential is with Mark Briscoe. That, first of all, he has a very crazy ass voice, really. And imagine if that was a champion of AEW. Imagine if he was a TNT champion. Imagine if he was doing promos. Imagine if he was opening a show. Imagine if he was a commentator. That type of really crazy voice, like almost like a Boomhauer, like a crystal meth Boomhauer. There's something in that. There's something with how he speaks that can get over really, really big with an audience. And I would also say, too, that you look at Jon Moxley and Mark Briscoe, they're both hardcore wrestlers. You can make a story that, Mark Briscoe is somebody with like 11, 12 kids. And you'd be like, hey, you know what? When I look at these younger wrestlers, I see them like my kids. I see them like a family. Where what you're doing, Jon Moxley, is that you're just annihilating everybody until somebody stands up with you. I treat these, I see them as my children. You see them as, somebody to pick on until you find the right, you know, person to stand up to the bully, really. There's such a story within that. Um, you also look at, what AEW is about. AEW has been always about being TV 14, and Mark Briscoe is a very TV 14 wrestler with a lot of his hardcore stuff, really. He's a great blood and guts wrestler. He's a great Anarchy, the arena wrestler. He's a really great all-out wrestler where they do more hardcore stuff, really. So I just think that, it's as I said, that the problem is it really stems down to bad booking. And my theory, and a lot of people's hypothesis on the booking really comes down to Tony Khan having way too many people on the roster, and he doesn't say okay case by case. He's not like a lawyer. He's almost like a lawyer taking on too many clients, where he needs to be like a lawyer operating a law firm and then be like, okay, you know what, I have like every writer is almost like a lawyer of 4 or 5 people, and we're gonna like create stories to help people out, really. But and that's Mark Briscoe's case. I think that the issue with him is that he's not given his full potential, really. And I think that with Mark Briscoe, I would want to make him go after the AEW championship. I would want to say, hey, he's close to retirement. He's in his 40s. He wants to honor his brother. He wants to honor his family. And he really wants to teach the next generation that, it really is. Wrestling is one big family. And you know what? Anybody who's against that is not right, really. You see the Hurt Syndicate going around beating up people. You see MJF believing in manipulating people. Oh, well, you see the Don Callis family, which is to be vindictive people. Oh, well, you see really the Moxley faction, which is to bully people until they get their way, really. There is a character of Mark Briscoe like family's important, and fighting against bullies and people who want to take things over and not doing the right thing. There is such a fight in that. There is such a character that he could do, really. And it's unfortunate that AEW doesn't embrace that. I think that, like I've said, quite honestly, if I was in WWE, I would hire Mark Briscoe, because, even if you made his name Redneck Kung Fu or whatever, there is charisma in him, and there is something that can make him a megastar. Because he's so, nobody talks like him, nobody is so off the wall like him. Like I said, he's almost like Slim Shady and McFoley put together, really. But it goes down to what I've said many, many times. It really comes down to bad booking. It really comes down, and it's even partially his fault for not saying, hey, you need to book me better, or hey, you know what, we need to start taking writers, and if things are not improving, we need to start firing writers, and until we kind of find the right combination, really. I think that, like I've said, I really think they need more writers with AEW, but they need to divide the writers into saying, hey, here are 5 wrestlers that you need to be assigned, and this is how you book them, and this is how we're going to lead to better matches and more compelling stuff, really, and this is how we're going to make Ring of Honor compelling. This is how we're going to make Collision compelling, in addition to Dynamite, so I really just, I wish for Mark Briscoe to get the success and get everything that he deserves, really, but he doesn't really deserve how they're booking him with AEW. He's definitely very underrated.